So we learn in the House of Hades that when Percy left Calypso's island, that she cursed Annabeth for taking him away from her. When Annabeth kills one of the Aerai, she has her sight taken away and is cursed to believe that Percy has abandoned her, just as he did Calypso. But this seems bizarrely out of character given what we know about Calypso. Calypso herself knows that it's not Percy's fault because she lived out this same curse several times already, with Odysseus and Sir Francis Drake respectively. She outright admits to Percy that he can't leave until she offers for him to stay, and that the gods are cruel, so on the surface, it doesn't make sense that she would curse Annabeth of all people. But we believe something else is going on here. We've come up with two possible explanations for why Calypso might have cursed Annabeth despite knowing full well that she had nothing to do with it. She was just an unfortunate player in the gods' cruel plan. We do, however, want to present a game to the rest of you. In the comments, leave your favorite quote from a Percy Jackson book of your choosing. Then go to someone else's comment and give your best guess as to who said it and what book it's from. This channel is designed to bring some people together and foster a creative community, so we want to make some introductions between fans of the series. So give it a shot and we'll see how it goes. But for now, let's talk about Calypso. The first idea has to do with her temperament in the House of Hades when Leo meets her, which is vastly different from Percy's first interaction with her. In the Battle of the Labyrinth, she's kind and caring. She saves Percy from the sea and nurses him back to health, but in the House of Hades, she storms up to Leo and immediately begins shouting at him. Calypso berates him for wrecking her picnic table and immediately tries to send him away, but it's not until later that we find out why. In The Last Olympian, one of Percy's conditions was the gods free Calypso, but that didn't happen. They completely forgot about her despite Calypso knowing that the gods promised that she would go free, though we don't exactly know for certain how she found this out. We believe that this is what finally broke her, because remember, almost an entire year has passed since the events of The Last Olympian, so she's been stewing on her island waiting to be set free for an additional year, which is probably enough to finally make her lash out. We believe that she probably threw a fit and cursed everybody, even if it was just in the heat of the moment, and Annabeth was simply caught in the crossfire of her tantrum. She probably cursed the gods, Percy, her father, and anyone involved in her imprisonment since for the first time in thousands of years, she'd finally gotten her hopes up. She became hopeful that she wouldn't have to endure the curse of falling for stragglers anymore, and that she could finally leave Ogygia for good this time. Until now, her ideal situation is that one of the people who washed ashore would finally be able to stay, just like how Sisyphus is convinced that this time he'll get the rock to the top of the hill. So this is the standard that she's been looking up to. Her happy ending never involved her going free, it involved breaking the cycle, and now she's been handed a solution that outshines everything she could possibly dream of. She's never even considered that she might one day be free from this place, and now the gods have promised to make it so. This kind of letdown would be enough to drive anyone over the edge, so we don't think she was malicious in cursing Annabeth. We think she was just fed up with everything that had happened in the last few years, and she sprayed a shotgun blast of curses at anyone and everyone in a fit of rage. It's also important to remember that Percy and Annabeth weren't dating at that point, and whether or not Percy realized he had feelings for Annabeth, he wasn't admitting it out loud to anyone. So Calypso knew that she was important to him, but wouldn't have known that they were romantically involved since they weren't at this point in time. There is, however, one other option that we want to talk about, and it has to do with Hermes, the god that Calypso says visits her from time to time in addition to Hephaestus. We know that Calypso somehow found out about the god's promise, and it makes sense that she learned it through the messenger of the gods, which would obviously be Hermes, indicating that he's been to Ogygia since the end of the Titan War. Hermes, however, was still conflicted regarding Luke's fate, and even though he knew what needed to happen, we know that the gods are still just as fallible and prone to emotion as everyone else. He knew that Luke faced a choice in his future, and he had to let Luke follow his own path. But we also know that multiple demigods stood in the way of stopping Luke from getting his allegiance to Kronos to go too far. Between the events of the Battle of the Labyrinth and the Last Olympian, Luke approached Annabeth under the flag of truce and told her that he wanted out. He straight up said that he wanted the two of them to run away together like the olden days and leave the entire war behind. At this moment, Annabeth had the power to save Luke. It can be argued that there are other points across the series where she had the opportunity to save him, but this is the most clear-cut example of Annabeth's decision playing a direct hand in steering Luke one way or another. If Hermes knew this, which he almost certainly did, then it would make sense that a small part of him is resentful toward her since he's grief-stricken at the death of Luke. We know that Hermes was not a good father, and in The Last Olympian we learn why, as it turns out that his perspective is actually a lot more complicated than a lot of the other gods. Most gods simply forget that their kids exist, and in the trials of Apollo, Apollo himself admits that he can't keep them all straight, which to a god is just minor inconvenience, whereas to demigods, it's a life-shaping drama. Hermes, however, did genuinely care about Luke, and he just couldn't interfere since the spirit of the Oracle warned him that Luke would have a particularly tumultuous fate that had to be left up to him. He cared more than most gods, which means that he grieved more than most gods, and one of the stages of grieving is anger. If he found himself in Ogygia in the midst of his grief, then he very well could have let something slip to Calypso about the last chance that Annabeth had to change Luke's fate. Again, we don't think that it was completely malicious or ill-intentioned, just that he was caught up in his emotions and lost in his judgment. But Calypso herself had personal feelings toward Annabeth already. There's nothing to say that it had to be just one or the other, and both of these things could be true to varying degrees. We don't know if Hermes alone has the power to free Calypso, so he might have come to Aegigio with news of her freedom, but still had to cut through some of the red tape to actually make it happen. Olympus was busy with reparations, not just physically speaking, but in terms of repairing their relationships with the minor gods who had turned. So Calypso might have just been low on their list of priorities. Therefore, he might have come to visit her to tell her to sit tight. Her freedom was on its way. They just had more work to get done first. During this time, however, he was still emotionally conflicted about the fight since Luke was newly dead and he had to come to terms with everything that had happened. But Calypso, being the kind-hearted hostess that she is, might have asked him. During this time, we know that Calypso was still a kindly and warm individual who likely would have invited Hermes to stay for a while and relax. Here, she and Hermes could have gotten onto the topic of Annabeth, planting the seeds for the day that Calypso had a breakdown like we mentioned before. Hermes leaves and Calypso waits, and day by day the waiting gets longer and longer. Eventually, Calypso gets restless and realizes that the gods have truly abandoned her. So this is when she lashes out, and Annabeth is inadvertently caught in the crossfire. This seems to be why she was so angry with Leo when he arrived the first time around, and unfortunately, this fit also nearly cost Percy and Annabeth their lives, or saved them depending on how you look at it. If Calypso hadn't cursed Annabeth, then she would have received a different curse from the array when she killed it, and Annabeth had a long history of killing a lot of monsters. As far as curses go, Calypso's was mentally scarring and certainly scary for her, but it didn't put her in any direct physical danger. She wasn't poisoned or bleeding out or anything that could have gotten her killed right away. She was just incapacitated while the array took their sweet time with Percy in order to make him suffer the full weight of everything he had done. This is up for interpretation, but if Annabeth had rolled the dice on another curse, she might not have made it out. But this is one of those things that we'll just never know for certain, and it's up for us to decide for ourselves. But that's why Calypso cursed Annabeth, and what we believe is going on behind the scenes. As always, we love this series, we love talking about the series, and we love to include all of you in the conversation as well. Try to get that quote into the comments, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.